Hey everybody, Tiffany here. It's been a while since I have recorded a PonTIFFications video, so I thought I would pop on and kind of tell you all what's been going on in my crafty life and what plans I have upcoming for craftiness and travel. I was talking to some online friends recently and some of them asked me when PonTIFFications would be back, and so I thought, okay, why not? I need to record one of these. So this is episode 5 of the PonTIFFications series, and it is April 2018. If you have missed the other videos in this series, you can always go back on my YouTube channel and watch those. It's been about a year since I've recorded one of these, so hopefully I can be a little more like, I don't know, a little more consistent about sharing some of these videos. And if you have certain things that you'd like for me to talk about, I would love to hear your suggestions or your requests. So, what's going on with me? Well, as you know, this time of year, we are starting to wrap up things at school. As a high school English teacher, we have lots of testing that's going on. I have lots of wrapping up units and trying to decide how we're going to end the year, lots of making final exams. We also have all of those, meetings and gradings and all kinds of things that happen in my work life. But I would much rather talk about my crafty life than my day job. So that's what I thought I would focus on for this episode of PonTIFFications. It is just about a week or 10 days since I co-hosted the Scrap Gals retreat in Grapevine, Texas. We had a great time with the group of women who joined us for that retreat. And I get so much out of getting to interact with people in person and getting to forge, I think, deeper friendships than are sometimes possible online. I mean, it's amazing that I get to connect with thousands of women in our Facebook community and via the podcast, but I really treasure those friendships that I can make in person, and being able to meet people from all walks of life and from all parts of the world that I might not have the opportunity to have met without this pretty amazing community. So that makes me really happy. Now, I never actually get any scrapbooking done at any of these scrapbooking retreats. They're quite a bit of work, and we're pretty busy the whole time during the retreat, but I think it's totally worth it. I taught a new class at this retreat. It was about journaling strategies, different methods of storytelling. And as part of the class, the people who attended, we made a traveler's notebook with 6 spreads in it, I think is right, and then including the title page, that is. And we also made a 12 by 12 layout. I know not everybody likes to scrapbook in traveler's notebooks, so I wanted to offer something to people who were willing to kind of try and go with that format, but also to people who preferred a more traditional approach to scrapbooking. At the end of this video, I'll share with you the page that my class made with me, and also the traveler's notebook that I led them through. One of the things that I'm doing as part of teaching this class this year is that for each of the retreats that we hold, the one that we had in Grapevine, Texas in April, the one that we have scheduled for the Seattle area in July, and the one that we're scheduling for the Nashville area in September, for each of those, I'm teaching the same kind of class, but we're using different products and we're also using different layout designs. And so my hope is that by the end of the year, if you attended one of the Scrap Gals retreats, you'll be able to access all of my class information for the whole year, and you'll have a finished traveler's notebook by the end of the year, which I think is pretty cool. That way it's something that you can work on all along. And if you register for any of the retreats, I'll be sharing my work with you throughout the year so that you'll be able to, you know, hop in and do the pages that we make at other locations. So I think that's kind of a fun aspect of the way that I've set up my class this year. I had some of the ladies who attended the Grapevine Retreat tell me, you know, personally, but then also they posted in our group some, that the storytelling strategies and the approaches that I talked about in the writing portion of the class really changed the way they wanted to approach some of their storytelling, or it widened their perspective, that they were ready to consider some different approaches for different kinds of stories, where maybe they had just kind of gotten in a rut and were doing the same thing over and over again on their pages up until that point. And that was like the most wonderful compliment and bit of encouragement that I could have received. I also got to have some conversations with some women that touched me, because I learned so much more about them, and they felt comfortable telling me those things because I had been honest and open and vulnerable with them as I taught my class. And so that was kind of a good life lesson for me too. It's sometimes hard to be open and to let yourself be vulnerable with people, you know, especially strangers on the internet. But I seem to always get more from those experiences than I anticipate. And so that's an affirming kind of thing, that this is a good choice and that these are the right things that I'm doing. So besides preparing for my class for the Scrap Gals Retreat just about a week, 10 days ago, I also have been working on my newest online class that I released on April 15th. It's called Document Your Difficult Stories, and it's about telling the hard stories of your life, those stories that are sad or painful, or that make you angry, or where you feel betrayed or hurt. But those same stories, you and I both realize, are probably the ones that really have the most power to shape you into who you are. And the way you deal with them, the way you move on from them, you and I, again, both recognize is so revealing of your character and of the kind of person that you are. Well, for a long time on the podcast and on my blog, I had been talking about how important it was to be honest and authentic and not to shy away from those stories. But I've been doing a lot of talking and not a lot of doing. Now, granted, I have had layouts and projects where I have alluded to negative things, or where I've been a little bit sarcastic or tongue-in-cheek about certain situations, and I haven't painted every layout and every moment of my life as being super rosy. I think I had been successful in those efforts, but I hadn't really told the difficult stories of my life that have shaped me in such dramatic ways. I hadn't really focused on the things that had been incredibly painful, or the things where I still felt really raw and vulnerable, or where I felt angry, or where I felt sad or betrayed or full of grief. And this class became the impetus for me to actually tell those stories and to walk that walk instead of just talking the talk. I have to say it wasn't easy. There were stories that I cried my way through telling in this album. I was a blubbering, silly, foolish mess for a couple of them in particular. And that in and of itself was a revelatory experience, because I hadn't recognized that I still wasn't fully healed in those situations, that I still had, you know, grieving to do, or that I still needed to deal with pain or betrayal or anger in certain situations. I'd overestimated how far I had come in a couple of the situations in particular. But now, looking back at this project, I am so incredibly proud of it. You know, I think I've mentioned before that teaching online scrapbook classes only works for me if they are projects that I want to make anyway. right? I'm not somebody, I think, who would be happy or content with like making up a class and just putting it out there for people to consume just because I wanted to create a class. No, it needs to be a project that I really want to make and that I really think other people might also want to make, and that I can help them do that. That is I don't know, that has to be the driving force for me, or it's not worth like that time and creative energy that it takes to create. And so this class was one that, you know, I approached it in a little bit of a different way. I chose 5 storytelling strategies that I introduce, and then I kind of walk you through the process of what kinds of stories would work with this particular storytelling strategy. Why would I want to use this particular approach with some stories versus why wouldn't I want to use this particular approach? You know, what does my brainstorming look like? What pictures did I choose, and why did I choose those photos instead of something else? How did I go about the process of making my story fit my strategy? And then of course, you know, I show you the finished product. And what I ended up doing is sharing 5 specific storytelling strategies with you. That they're not necessarily limited to telling difficult stories, but that's the approach or the framework that I use to introduce them. And then I share with you 10 stories total, 2 for each strategy, where I incorporate that strategy in telling my own story. So you get to walk through the process with me. You get to see how I did it, and then hopefully I give you some tools where you can apply these same approaches, these same questions, the same desire to tell those difficult stories to the ones that are true about your own life. And it's pretty powerful. You know, if no other creative work of mine were to survive, if someone were to pick up this album that just has 10 stories in it right now about the difficult moments of my life, the person who read that would know an awful lot about who I am and how I became that person. And there is power in that. There is power in telling your stories and being brave enough to tell the ones that are so dramatic or so painful or so fresh. And so I'm really proud of that project. I can't think of another project that I am more proud of, except maybe my Decembers to Remember album that I made this past December 2017. If you haven't checked that out, I would encourage you to do so. It was my take on Ali Edwards' December Daily project. I basically just twisted it and made it my own, and I told 31 stories of Christmas memories from when I was growing up. So it's full of old pictures and nostalgic stories and kind of a walk down memory lane, but it's also a very revealing kind of portrait of who I was as a little girl and how I grew into the woman that I am now. And it is such a treasure. You know, I come from a family of storytellers, but most of them are gone now. And so I feel like so proud of myself for having told those stories that feature those characters that figured so prominently in my life growing up that, you know, my daughter, you know, hardly knew or would never know. And then certainly that her own children someday would never know. But knowing these stories, being able to read those stories and see those photos will paint a picture of our family that wouldn't have existed otherwise. And so please feel free to check out my blog or to go back to my YouTube videos from earlier this year about my December to Remember project, my Decembers to Remember project. It really was a powerful experience and one that I am so glad that I told. It makes me wonder what I might do next year, you know, and I've got some ideas floating around in that, but more to come on that. I mean, it's only April. I've got some time to think about it, right? But I bring that up in talking about my, you know, Document Your Difficult Stories class because they are interesting kind of counter projects to one another. They both look back. They both, you know, are not about the present. They are looking at my life through the lens of perspective, but they're very different feels, and I think maybe equally proud of them. My Decembers to Remember project is a great insight into who I was growing up and a way to kind of compare that little girl to who I am now. And the Document Your Difficult Stories class that I'm offering is more a focus on the events that shaped me as an adult. Those stories go back about 15 years, I guess, at this point, maybe a little bit longer. And some of the stories are as recent as just a year or two ago. And so taken together, these two small albums really give you an interesting perspective kind of the arc of my life, the good and the bad, the child and the adult, and kind of the growth, I think, that occurred from both sets of experiences. My hope is that by the end of 2018, I'll be able to offer a second volume of this Document Your Difficult Stories class, so that I can offer 5 more strategies for storytelling and offer you 10 more layouts that, again, recount the difficult stories of my life and what I think about them now. I guess I have to leave this as kind of an open-ended album, because certainly I may face more challenging stories and events in the future. I mean, I like to think that most of the really hard stuff is behind me, but I know life doesn't necessarily work that way. And so it makes me really happy to think that I have accomplished 10 of those stories so far, that I plan to tell 10 more, and that along the way I might be able to help some of you tell those stories that you feel deserve a place in a scrapbook somewhere, because they are part of your real life story. I think honoring your life experiences in that way can be a really powerful tool. So if you're interested, it's available at my website, and you're welcome to follow through with that. If not, I would encourage you to maybe challenge yourself as a documenter, as a scrapbooker, to tell one of the stories that you've never told because it's too painful or too sad, or you don't know how to start. I would challenge you to try it and see how it feels, and to do your family and yourself the honor of telling that story, you know, because I do think it matters. And I'm really proud of myself for walking the walk now, and not just, you know, talking a good game and that kind of thing. The other thing that I've been working on in my crafty life, and I will show you again at the end of this video, I'm going to do a flip through of these different projects that I mentioned. But the other thing that I'm pretty excited to continue working on is my Big Happy Memory Planner. You might remember that I started working on it in October of 2017. And so, you know, we're like, what, 7 months in? And I haven't been a total success, but I haven't been a total failure at this project, either one. I'm somewhere in the middle. I have totally finished 3 of the months, and I feel really good about that. I'm proud of what I've made, and I'm glad that I have this kind of documentation of the everyday things that happen in my life, things that might not be worthy of a layout or of its own page, but things that nevertheless do kind of make up the minutia of my life. There are 2 months that I've done a little bit with, you know, I'm not finished, but I've started. And then there are like 2 or 3 months that I haven't done anything at all. I have to be honest, I'm behind. And so in a way, I'm mad at myself that I've gotten behind. But on the other hand, I'm trying to just be sort of positive and reassuring and tell myself that that's okay. This is an ongoing project. It's not a big deal that you've fallen behind. And so my game plan, hopefully, is to finish up, be caught up, maybe I should say be caught up with through the end of May by the time that I start traveling in mid-June. I would feel really, I'd feel really proud of myself, and I'd feel really confident with being able to stick with the project if I were able to reach that goal. Now, how much time are we talking about here, right? Because since I have these months that are left undone, I have to think to myself, how long will it take me to actually finish this project instead of, how long will it take me as if I were totally starting from scratch? So I think that if I were starting from scratch, as in I hadn't done anything for the month at all, that I'm looking at about 3 scrapbooking sessions in order to complete it. Maybe about 9 hours. Now, I know that that sounds like a lot, but keep in mind that's to document an entire month from start to finish. In the first session, I would probably choose my photos and print them using my Scrapbook printer. Then I would stamp the dates, and I would go through all of the weeks, and make sure that I had the dates and the days of the week finished. And then I would probably go ahead and decorate the monthly preview page. I could get that done in about a 3-hour session. In the second 3-hour session, I would likely adhere the photos. I would choose the pattern paper, and I would adhere that. So whatever pattern paper I thought I wanted to use, I would probably take care of. And then in the final scrapbooking session for that month, I would journal in the spaces that I had left, and then I would fill in with stickers and other embellishments. That sounds like a lot of time to spend on one project, 1 month for one project. But if you're thinking about just 3 scrapbooking sessions, that would be a couple of sessions on the weekend and maybe 1 during the week that would let me accomplish a whole month of memory keeping. And so when I look at it in those terms, it feels really doable. I know a lot of people who do the planner craze, that they work about 15 or 20 minutes a day in order to stay up to date in their planners. And I would love to be that person, but that's not who I am. I'm somebody who would prefer to scrapbook in longer chunks of time, even if it means that I scrapbook less frequently. And I'm somebody who really likes to have a kind of like a deadline for when I want to finish something, because that deadline motivates me. So I could say hypothetically that my goal for May 1st, for example, is to make the April spreads for my memory planner. And even though it's already April 23rd, I could totally accomplish that because I could fit in 8 or 9 hours of scrapbooking in the next 8 days or so if I wanted. Now, I'm not saying don't like hold me to that. I'm not going to be crazy and give myself a deadline on the internet. But I'm saying that I think that it's reasonable. And since I have 2 months that are already partially completed, I think that being able to be caught up before I leave in mid-June to travel is definitely a reasonable kind of goal to set. The other thing that I'm excited to work on and that I really want to kind of get back to before I start my traveling this summer is I want to finish the documentation of my Europe trip last year. You might recall that I tried using the Project Life app from Becky Higgins to make several pages, and I was really actually pleased with the process. I even had a few pages printed through the Project Life app and also from Persnickety Prints so that I could compare which set that I liked better. I did a blog post about it, and I may have even talked about it on another video, but I don't recall that 100% at this point. And so, newsflash, like spoiler alert, I decided that I preferred Persnickety Prints because the texture of the paper, the weight of the paper, and the colors were more to my liking. But I will tell you that between the 2 services, they were the exact same price. They took the exact same amount of time to get to me here in Kentucky from where they were printed. And I think that they both had the exact same shipping price. So really it's a matter of personal preference to which one, that you would go with. So I'm thinking now that I'd really like to try to finish up getting all of those pages laid out and saved and maybe even printed before I start traveling this summer, so that when I get home from my trip, I could simply add some of the embellishments, some of the 3D kinds of things that I wanted to include on those pages, and then I would have that album finished. That's a really exciting prospect to me. And I saved up for a new iPad at the end of last year and treated myself. And so I think the process will be even easier with, you know, a machine that has a faster speed, it has a bigger screen, and hopefully I wouldn't run into some of the glitches that I ran into last summer when I was still fighting with my kind of ancient iPad. So that's something that I'm really excited about doing. I also have kind of in the works some plans to scrapbook some of the Scrap Gals retreats. I can't decide yet if I want to do like one traveler's notebook insert for each year and include all of the retreat information from all the retreats in a single insert and then kind of store them all together in one holder, or if I might want to do one insert for each retreat. That's kind of what I'm leaning toward, because there are so many great pictures that I get to take with so many awesome people that I would want to be able to include as many of them as possible. Plus, I sometimes do a little sightseeing or a little bit of traveling around those retreats, and each retreat having its own traveler's notebook would give me the freedom to include some of those extra things instead of just sticking to the facts kind of thing. So I'm sort of playing around with that idea, and that would be something that I could kind of take with me on the go as I travel if I felt the need to be working on something while I'm out and about. But honestly, the pace of when I travel is so intense that a lot of times I don't feel like, you know, journaling or working on scrapbooky stuff at the end of the day. I just kind of, you know, pass out from exhaustion or whatever. So I don't know, that's something definitely to consider. I'm also planning on releasing a couple of other scrapbook classes at some point over the course of the year. I haven't decided yet what those might be. So if you're someone who would like to have a class about a certain topic, or you'd like to see me tackle a certain kind of format or approach or something, please feel free to let me know. I'm certainly open to suggestions. I'd have to choose a project that really spoke to me and that seemed like something I would want to scrapbook, but maybe you guys have some great ideas that I haven't considered. So feel free to share away if that is, if you've got some burning topic that you wish that I would approach. What else? I guess I should mention a little something about my upcoming travel, simply because so many of you guys know me for that. That is kind of, you know, my jam is traveling. And I'm lucky that part of my job allows me to have several weeks off at a time in the summer in order to see some amazing places and do some amazing things. So I'm grateful for that. Many of you know that I do my little side gig things like ESS and teaching a night class and teaching online scrapbook classes and the retreats and that sort of thing to help fund my desire to travel. So it's like I work all year to make these things happen, and you can see why I would look forward to them so much. In mid-June, I'm taking a group of about 25 students to Australia, New Zealand, and Hawaii. I've never been to any of these places, and I am super excited to get to see them. It's a little nerve-wracking too, because I don't really know what to expect. So I've checked out a couple of books from the library. I have some documentaries that I want to watch to kind of prepare. I've asked our Aussie and Kiwi friends in our Facebook community for some tips and some suggestions, and they've been very sweet to oblige. I did watch all of the episodes of Border Patrol Australia to help me, you know, prepare, because you know that's totally accurate, right? And there were also some episodes of like a beach rescue 911 type show from Australia that I watched in great shock some of the things that happened to some of the people who were swimming off the coast of Australia. But since I'll be there when it's winter time, I don't think that I'll have to worry about any kind of a beach rescue or anything like that, hopefully. But I'm super excited about that trip, and I'm excited to think about how I might document it, and haven't really made any decisions about that yet, but I am thinking about it at least. And then about a month later, in mid-July, I'm heading out to the Pacific Northwest to travel a little bit on my own. I'll spend a few days on the Oregon coast. Then I'll be in Portland for about 10 days, and then I'll spend a few days just outside of Seattle before the Scrap Gals retreat in Lakewood, which is a little bit south of Seattle, occurs at the end of July. You know, if you've been following my blog or the podcast or social media, that I do love traveling alone, but this will be one of the first trips that I've taken in the US by myself, and so I'm excited about that. I think it'll be interesting to kind of compare my experiences of traveling alone abroad versus traveling alone here in the US. I'm not quite sure really, you know, what to expect, but I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see some amazing places and meet some amazing people, hopefully. So that's kind of where we stand, a little bit of what's going on in my life right now in terms of my crafty endeavors, some of the things that I'm looking forward to in terms of crafting goals and projects, and also a little bit about some upcoming travel that I have planned. I'm glad that you tuned in to this episode of PonTIFFications, and I hope that you'll stick around just a few more minutes while I walk you through some of my recent projects so you can check those out if you're interested. Okay, talk to you soon. This is the layout that I made to go with my class that I taught at the retreat last weekend. And look, y'all, I actually painted little tulips on it. Are you like impressed? You totally should be, because I am not a mixed media person. But this is the one that I shared with my class in Grapevine, Texas. It is not the same layout or the same topic that I'll be sharing in the other Scrap Gals retreats, so I thought I would just show you here what I made. Here's a look at the Traveler's Notebook that I made with my class at the Scrap Gals Grapevine retreat. They don't have this cover. They actually have a hand-lettered cover that Tracy made for them, but we did all stamp our names and put it on the front. And like I said, I'm not going to teach this same class with these same layouts at the other Scrap Gals retreats, so I thought I would show you what I did. Here's my title page. Here's a page that I made about myself when I was a little girl, about contrasting the ideal that you have in your mind with what reality actually is. A page about learning something about myself and human nature along the way. Here's a spread about the people in my village. That one was a lot of fun to teach. And here's one where I did some more watercoloring about my daily routine. And that's it. Now you'll see that I have lots more pages in my Traveler's Notebook. So my plan is that the people who attend the Scrap Gals retreats this year will be able to use all of the pages. I'm going to share all of the different pages and prompts with them throughout the course of the year, so that even if you just come to one of the retreats, by the end of the year, you actually have a finished project. I think that's pretty cool. Here is the gorgeous Felicity Jane album that I used for the class about documenting your most difficult stories. Thought I would share my title page with you. I'm not going to give the rest of the thing away, but I'll just flip through briefly. You'll notice that this is a project that has lots and lots of journaling, so much so that I actually had to type the journaling, which if you follow me and my creative pursuits, you know that I really prefer handwritten journaling, but sometimes the project just calls for those things to be printed instead. You can already see the layouts that I have completed in there, 10 stories total. And my hope is that by the end of 2018, I have told 20 of my most difficult stories so that the people who choose to check that out someday get to know me a little better, and that I don't know, that my life seems more real, that it seems more honest, more authentic, because I didn't just focus on the happy times. I told those difficult stories too. And last but not least, I wanted to share with you my big happy memory planner, at least how much of it that I've gotten done. I started in October of 2017, and I have shared photos, and I think even a flip through at some point, both on my blog and on my YouTube channel. But you can just kind of get a feel. This is the month of October. I am totally finished with it in terms of the weeks and stuff. I feel pretty good about it. But I didn't do this page because I wasn't sure at that point if I wanted to. And I still don't know if I'm going to go back and do it. I give myself permission to think about it more. November is also finished. I do a lot of handwriting in my memory planner, lots of photos and pattern paper. I use stickers. It's a place where I can just have fun and document the little stories of my life, the things that I don't think are maybe worthy of an entire layout, but that I want to have a little record of nonetheless. It's also a great way to use some of the themed papers that I've collected, so that if I don't get around to doing full spreads, at least I can use little bits of these papers here. I did not do the monthly page on this too. Here, let me undo this clip. I haven't done the monthly page for November yet, but I'm still thinking about it. The jury's out. December got away from me, as you can tell. I did go through and I put in lots of the pictures and some of the pattern paper that I want to use for December, but I have not journaled yet. So I'm like counting this month as halfway done. I've printed the pictures and adhered to them. I've chosen some of the pattern paper and adhered it. I've included some of the stickers and embellishments that I want to use. I just haven't told the stories yet or done that last page. Are you sensing a theme there? January is also kind of a bust. And I blame that on the flu and on my December's to Remember project. So I got like 2 things down. I have a few things adhered, a few photos that I've printed and already put in, but I have not started putting in pattern paper, and I have not yet started putting in the embellishments or the journaling. Just keeping it real here, guys. Still haven't done that monthly page. I do have one done, so stay tuned. I am finished with February. So when I worked on this project last, my question for myself was, do I just go ahead and pick back up where I had stopped working, which was December, or do I work on the current month, which at the time was February? And I decided it was more fun for me to go ahead and work on the current month. And so I have my journaling done. I have my pictures adhered. This month is finished and I feel really good about it because it feels good to have more full pages, right? If I'd had another month of blank pages, I would have been so sad. And look, you're not gonna believe it, but I even did the monthly page for February. And that's as far as I've gotten. So I have let's see, what, 3 completed months. I have 2 partially completed months, and I have 2 months that I haven't really done anything on. But that's okay. I'm still loving this project, and I still plan on sticking with it. So that's good, right? That's what I'm telling myself. All right, I'll catch up with you guys again soon. I hope you enjoyed this newest episode of PonTIFFications.